Beyond cholesterol, item number 2, the gut and the heart. And we got to give credit to the bright, forward-thinking Hippocrates. So he gets credited with almost everything. We don't know really what he said for sure in most cases. We don't know that he ever said food is medicine, but we think he said all disease begins in the gut, which makes some sense. You know, really, if you think about it, you got a tube that starts your nutrition pathway here, and you got a tube that ends your nutrition pathway down below. And there are other ways to get things in the body, through the skin, through breathing. But the majority of what gets in the body, and we think what gets in the body matters for health or illness, is through our diet, through the gut, and good choices is important. So if I asked how many people in the room are experts on TMAO, a couple, good, very good, but it's not wasted time. Until 2011, if you walked up to a cardiologist and says, hey, how's that TMAO blood level measurement you're doing in the clinic working for you, we would not have any clue what was being mentioned. TMAO is a molecule that was in the scientific literature for a few decades because it helps fish in very deep oceans stay buoyant. The reason that crushing pressure doesn't cause the fish to be trapped on the ocean floor and unable to swim is they have a buoyancy system, a little bit like a submarine. And TMAO is a buoyant molecule. So that was in the literature. But it turns out a very bright team of scientists at Cleveland Clinic, led by a MD cardiologist named Stanley Hazen. Could be one day he'll be Nobel Prize awarded Stanley Hazen. It's possible. They said, you know, there's more than cholesterol. We've mentioned that. Cholesterol matters, but there's more. Maybe we can find a molecule nobody appreciates that does contribute to heart disease, and then we can fight heart disease more effectively by one more tool. And they had about 3 items on the list. TMAO was one based on some science. And they went to the lab and they developed a 1-minute version theory that you'll love this as a plant eater, but when you eat red meat, which has L-carnitine, or when you eat egg yolk, which is rich in something called choline, when you have gut bacteria that like to convert those two molecules, you will make a molecule in your bloodstream called TMA. It smells like fish, but quickly your liver will take TMA and convert it to TMAO, and it'll be in your bloodstream, and it might promote plaque. That was all a theory based at the Cleveland Clinic. And they quickly did some studies in Petri dishes. If you look at what's in yellow, when TMAO from the steak or the egg is high in your blood, it doesn't let that HDL cholesterol clean up your arteries, take the cholesterol back to your liver. It actually helps other cells put cholesterol into the artery wall through the endothelium, and it increases risk. They could quickly prove that this seemed to be a hot prospect. And as you see there to your left, there's some seafood, but there's largely red meat and eggs. We eat them, humans do. Our bacteria change them into TMA, our liver changes it into TMO, and then we're worried that that helps clog arteries. A completely different pathway than cholesterol. Cholesterol matters. This has been studied in mice. If you feed a mice choline, which is in egg yolk, it's not very much in egg white, all of a sudden you'll have more plaque in the arteries of mice. If you give the mice an antibiotic, it'll kill the bacteria for a while. If there's no bacteria, they can't convert it. You won't have TMAO. So it proved the importance of the gut bacteria in this mouse study. You don't necessarily even have to give them red meat. You can just give them this vitamin called, it's amino acid called L-carnitine. We'll talk about that in a minute. And it is specifically that amino acid that converted by the bacteria into ultimately TMAO. And if you kill the bacteria, you won't make TMAO and you won't get atherosclerosis. So this is actually human data. This is right at the beginning of their project at the Cleveland Clinic. Take 1,000 people that are going for a heart catheterization, see how blocked their heart arteries are, and measure their blood TMAO level. This isn't astounding, but the more blockage you have, the higher is your blood TMAO level. First time that was determined. Gives some clues this may matter in human disease. They looked at now 1,800 people. They looked at now not cath lab, but do you have clogged arteries in your legs? Do you have clogged arteries in your heart? Have you ever had a heart attack? The higher your level of TMAO, it might 1.5 to 2 times double the risk. And double the risk could be similar to the risk of smoking in heart disease, diabetes in heart disease, so it's not a really unimportant factor. in here specifically in a study now, 4,000 humans, you're 2.5 times more likely to have a heart attack, heart event like emergency catheterization and all, if you have a high level of TMAO at the Cleveland Clinic, 2.5 times. What about eating eggs? A very hot topic, and there's a whole body of data. TMAO is only one small part of the egg story, but if you give volunteers several eggs a day, they will raise their TMAO levels on average. It took more than 2 eggs to reach a significant rise in TMAO. Won't happen with a sweet potato or sprouts, I assure you. You can see here foods that are rich in the precursors: beef, pork, ham, lamb, veal, processed meats, eggs, less so dairy, but full-fat products to some. And if you look way to the right, energy drinks and vitamins. Because it turns out there's a lot of energy drinks, I'll show you a slide in a minute, and there are a lot of vitamins that people take for energy, for brain health, that have L-carnitine and choline. If a doctor has told you to do that, discuss it with your doctor. They probably don't know about TMAO. It doesn't mean it's absolutely bad to take a vitamin of that type, but we have to rethink it given the new information. So if you took a can of Monster drink and you look at the label, you'll see that there is L-carnitine. There's actually quite a bit of L-carnitine, and it can absolutely raise your TMAO level. I have drawn about 5,000 blood levels of TMAO over the last 4 years and have been able to bring it down by changing diet, stopping vitamins, stopping energy drinks. I'm going to pass that for a minute. So our food should be our medicine should be our food, we think Hippocrates said, and he certainly wouldn't have supported energy drinks. Vegetarians and vegans, as you might imagine from what I told you, shouldn't have a high blood level of TMAO unless they're taking these vitamins or energy drinks. But even if you feed, and these are paid volunteers, 8 paid volunteers agreed to eat a steak, even though they were vegans by choice, they did not raise their blood TMAO level by 1 steak because the gut bacteria in a vegan are generally different than the gut bacteria in somebody who generally eats meat-based foods. So we are somewhat protected by it all. The Mediterranean diet, and what is taught usually, avoid red meat and substitute generally fish if you're going to eat an animal product, does lower TMAO levels if it's high at baseline, but vegans will still have the lowest levels. There is a chemical, you know, if you're at the Cleveland Clinic, you have a choice when you have all this data. We should teach the world to eat plants, or let's find a substance we can patent and make $1 billion. So what do you think the Cleveland Clinic's doing? They got their substance. And the one they're studying most aggressively is called DMB. Don't remember that, although there may be DMB in balsamic vinegar, and it may be an advantage to have balsamic vinegar or other vinegars in your diet. But it turns out this chemical blocks in the gut wall the enzyme that converts L-carnitine and choline into TMA. They just published 2 weeks ago the first human data. It is cooking as their project. I don't know if you can patent this molecule. They probably have slightly modified it so they can patent it and bring it out as a cardioprotective drug. It may be a good thing for humanity because I'm not of the belief everybody's getting to vegan food diets in the next week or so. I think we got a little work to do. There is a blood test that can be checked in people at particular risk or curiosity. There's a normal range. This used to be a little exotic. It's a blood test I would send to the Cleveland Clinic, but now Quest Labs, of which I have no financial interest, bought the lab at Cleveland called Cleveland Heart, and every Quest lab in America will draw a TMAO level with a little checkbox. And generally I found it's covered by insurance very readily with a diagnosis of high cholesterol and such. So if you want to know, you can. So it's a consideration. At least avoid the foods and the supplements, L-carnitine, choline, energy drinks, and perhaps you want to check your level. That's a little bit on the edge in terms of actually solid data. If you just wanted to confirm that your diet is good and nobody's sneaking anything adverse into anything you're using, you can do that.